Hello, and welcome to Get Recc'd. I am your host, Don Falgout.
And I'm your other host, Stephen Falgu. Get Recc'd is our occasional podcast where every week I recommend something to Dawn recommends something to me, and then in the following episode we discuss. And a merry Toyotathon to you, a happy Honda days, a joyous Lexus season of giving. That's right.
Yeah, I've been
Viewers out there.
picking up all the rides. I hope that y'all have as well. It's been just great, and it's not over yet. Okay, it's not over yet because not until January.
Yeah, you can
will we
still
allow
get
this
those
season
great
to end.
deals. All those great deals. Last chance. A happy holidays to everyone out there. This is, of course, our holiday episode, as we gave each other holiday recs last time, which we will be talking about. Two classic holiday movies that everyone, I'm sure, watches every year.
Yeah, stuff that really gets you in the festive spirit, gets you prepared to buy a new Lexus, prepared to buy a new Toyota. I will say I didn't catch those brands in these films, unfortunately. I will be calling their representatives shortly to inform them that they need to work a little bit harder on the marketing front. But regardless,
Yeah, we're looking for profits here, people.
yeah, big returns.
Big returns.
And it is worth noting that we do in fact have a vested monetary interest in all of our viewers buying a new car from every car dealership because we are sponsored by all of them. You would think that that's a bit of a competing interest for both us and each brand individually, but you know what? It's all about the big money here at Get Recc'd.
We do get commission, so I ask each and every one of you out there, what's it going to take to get you in this brand new car?
Yeah, and if you can provide us those responses to our brand email at getrecc'd@email, we'll appreciate that. Hopefully nobody has that address because they are about to be swamped.
Right, getrecc'd@email.email. Just send it over your dial-up connection. Put that into your computer screen, and we will take a look. Reply promptly. Thank you.
Yeah, and
of course, I hope we are, of course, a few days after the traditional holidays, so I hope everyone out there has had good holidays. As we record this, we are still in the never-ending year that is 2020, and we may forever be. But we'll see, I guess, in about a week.
Yeah, watch when the calendar shifts back to January 1st, and it's
right.
it all starts all over again.
When the ball in New York drops, it gets to 1, and then it actually goes back up and counts up again. And we go in reverse, so we actually start on the 31st and go backwards.
Yeah, it's going to be a ride. It's going to be a ride, but we will be there. We will be there with you, so don't worry about it.
Yeah, but I will say, if that happens, we will just, every episode for the backwards 2020 will be the same as the forwards 2020. We'll just have to re-record it and try to remember everything that we said.
Yeah, hold us to that. I know you've all memorized all of our dialogue, so I really hope that we can.
Wiki moderators, all the wiki moderators out there, get ready.
Yeah, and with that, I ask for everyone to pull out their notepads and begin to record our lines for today's episode, and we can get right into it, and we can get into what you recommended to me, Stephen, if that's all right.
Yes. So, Don, I recommended to you last time, again, just a Christmas classic. Everyone watches it. Batman Returns. This is 1992, Tim Burton's Batman Returns, the sequel in the Batman 4-part movie franchise, I guess, although depending how you look at it, Tim Burton only directed 2 of those. This, of course, stars Michael Keaton, again reprising his role as Batman, as he did in, I believe it was 89's Batman with Tim Burton. So with that, I will hand it over to you.
Yeah, I gotta say, first of all, this film really got me into the festive spirit. I was feeling quite holidacious, if you will. It was very nice. I really enjoyed all of the Christmas themes of this film, which include weird fetish shit. There was a lot of that, so I really appreciated that, and it just really it warmed my heart. So thank you for that. I will say it has been quite a long time since I've seen the first Tim Burton Batman movie, though I have seen it. And if I ever say anything that seems a little bit out of line in regards to that movie or something, that's probably why. But I have seen it. And and I've heard a lot about this movie, and all of it was kind of true. In the sense that this is a very, very weird movie. I don't know how this happened. I mean, it's something. This film, unlike the last one, well, is it really unlike the last one? I suppose the first Tim Burton Batman had the Joker as the villain, and the Joker's definitely quite wacky. But this film really decided to kick that into overdrive. And the main villain here is the Penguin. I know that in this poster he's like off to the right, but Catwoman is also there. Batman, not so much, but they're in it. Catwoman and the Penguin are definitely in it. And the Penguin is a great role for Danny DeVito, who is a creepy pervert who bites people's noses.
And eats fish.
Yes.
Like a penguin does.
Yes. And he also has a legion, a penguin army of actual penguins who I guess are radio controlled. That I didn't get so much. But they're also like his family. Oh, and he also has somehow kidnapped an entire circus troupe who are his henchmen. So that's the driving force of this film.
Also, Pee Wee Herman's his dad.
What? I do not remember that. What?
Yeah, the very first scene where they show where like he's born and the doctors are running out scared because he's so gross, and then he eats a cat. That his dad is Pee Wee Herman.
I didn't recognize that.
Yeah, that's Paul Rubens.
Well, nice. That makes sense. Yeah. So the film, just to be clear, the of course, the reason this film is so festive is it does take place on Christmas. It's one of those sort of Christmas movies in the sense that it's not really a Christmas film in terms of like genre convention, but the film does take place on Christmas and features a lot of Christmas imagery. And I would even say that Danny Elfman's score for this movie, which is great by the way, obviously, has like some Christmas music stuff in there to kind of represent the season. And they do on multiple occasions say Merry Christmas and reference Christmas. So is it a Christmas movie? Who cares? But it made me feel very festive. So that's all that really matters. Yeah, I can't remember how much like Tim Burton isms were in the first Batman movie, but it definitely wasn't this much. And I mean, it just feels like the kind of product that when it was finally completed and it was turned into the studio executives and they watched this, they probably panicked because I don't think that if anyone had known what would happen if they allowed Tim Burton this much control over this sequel, that they would have let him do it. I really don't think so. Because one, it's a Batman movie that doesn't focus on Batman at all. And I can't remember how much the first one did. I mean, there definitely was a good amount of emphasis on the Joker there, but this movie, Batman's not even in it for like a good portion of the exposition. He has like one scene, when I say Batman, I include Bruce Wayne in that as well. There aren't many scenes with Michael Keaton in them, or at least not as many as there should be, or as many as audiences would probably want. And if you were going to see the movie because you wanted to see the Penguin, which I can't imagine why you would, or because you wanted to see Catwoman, which I can at least imagine that, you're probably also going to be disappointed because these characters are insane. I have not seen this much like blatant fetishism in like a big budget movie that isn't like 50 Shades of Grey, I guess. I mean, what a nightmare. I mean, this is crazy. Like, it was funny because in the beginning of the film, I was questioning a little bit. I was like, well, I can definitely see it's a little weird, you know, but like, I mean, it's not that weird. People have hyped this up to me a lot, or I guess the internet has, as being a really weird movie, but things definitely get going, especially once Catwoman actually becomes Catwoman, and the movie really just begins its downward spiral from there, and there's a lot of scenes I suppose I could talk about, but I will stop briefly to allow you, Steven, to comment on that.
Yeah, I just want to mention that a lot of people consider this to be the best Batman movie, and I, for the life of me, do not understand why. Because this movie is so bizarre, but not in an interesting way. A lot of times it's like gross for gross sake, but again, not really played for laughs. This movie to me feels like Burton at his most Burton, and that is just something that I have never comprehended. I know that there are people out there who are huge Burton heads and love everything that he does, but this movie to me, when I saw it for the first time a while ago, it immediately I felt reminiscent of like the new Alice movies, all of that new stuff that he's done, which is just like so weird and out there that it's almost nonsensical and just frankly not enjoyable to watch. I mean, I'm sure one of the scenes that you're going to talk about, and probably the most fetishistic scene in this movie, is where Selina Kyle ends up on Oswald Cobblepot, the Penguin's bed. They have this exchange where she eats his bird and he is going to cut her cat, and then she starts cleaning herself, and by that I mean licking her leather and cleaning herself like a cat. And that whole scene is just so bizarre and goes on for so long. And that's pretty much the entire movie.
Well, don't forget, all throughout that scene, the Penguin is grunting excessively in the background. And there are camera shots of him laying down on the bed. And he's like sinking into it.
And this movie is like misogynistic, but it's played for laughs, and Selena is like girl power, but not. It like doesn't make any sense. And it like, and watching it in like today, like looking back on this movie, it just does not age well at all. Versus the first Batman movie, the first Burton Batman movie, I feel like ages very well. Was very well done. This one is just so weird. And I feel like what hurts this movie a lot more than the first one is that they tried to stuff so many characters into this thing. And I feel like that became the downfall for this set of 4 films from this point onward, going into Forever and the Batman and Robin, or whatever it was called, the really bad one.
Which I have seen. Great movie.
It's just like they try to stuff so many characters that honestly, as you mentioned, like this film, the majority of this film is just them like showing how Selina Kyle becomes Catwoman, like showing the Penguin, showing Max Schreck, who like is not a non-character because as I'm looking at the Wikipedia, apparently Billy D. Williams was supposed to play Two-Face in this movie but backed out. So they just wrote in a throwaway character to kind of have that role in the film. I will say the one thing I do really enjoy about the movie, though, is the casting. Like, as weird as the dialogue is and the scenes are, I feel like Michelle Pfeiffer does a really great job with what she's given. Danny DeVito is incredible as the Penguin, like this weird, gross thing. And Christopher Walken always has a funny voice.
Yeah, he sure does. I look, it's like, I think the biggest problem with the movie, honestly, isn't just that it's weird. It's that it doesn't feel like it is even supposed to be a lot of the time. Like, if you give Burton room to be weird and to make up a weird story and to do something weird, like, he can do that. And that's obviously what he wants to do. But he doesn't have the room to make a super weird story here. I mean, take away all of the crazy, gross fetish shit in this movie. Take it out. Just forget that it even exists. And just think about what the plot is. It's definitely a little cartoony, but it doesn't call for the level of grotesque weirdness that was placed into it after the fact. And as a result, and as you mentioned, with the excess amount of characters, it is just a clusterfuck of a movie. Like, it's not even always consistently that crazy and weird. Because if it was like bonkers the whole time, you could definitely give it credit for that. That might have worked. Tim Burton definitely could have pulled something like that off. But no, it really isn't. It just kind of gets like that sometimes, and it's like you don't even know why. That entire scene in the Penguin's bedroom with him and Catwoman is a nightmare. It is horrible. It's incredibly uncomfortable, and I don't know why it is. I mean, I know why it is, but I don't know what the intent was there. I feel like a lot of the weird shit in this movie was supposed to be funny, because you have to think, this is a giant, this is a big budget movie. It's a superhero movie. It's a big event. It's the sequel to the 1989 Batman. There's no way, or at least I really doubt, that Tim Burton wanted everybody to hate it and to be super uncomfortable. If you want to make audiences uncomfortable, then you're aware they're going to be, and a lot of people are going to get turned off by that. I just can't imagine Tim Burton intended that. And
although what is interesting, I am seeing, and again, who knows his intention, but, and let me pull up where I saw it. Basically, he didn't want to do it.
So a fan theory then, or a headcanon then, could be that he intentionally threw the movie so that he wouldn't have to direct a third one.
Oh, here we go. Burton originally did not want to direct another Batman film. Warner Brothers developed a script with Sam Hamm. Burton agreed to return after they granted him more creative control and replaced Hamm with another writer.
Well,
so I doubt it, but it's certainly possible.
Yeah.
Although, again, people really like this movie, and I don't understand it.
I can't. Okay, but
Oh, the other scene, really quick. The other scene that I wanted to mention is the one that you've kind of already alluded to, which is the scene where they I guess we should give the general plot synopsis. Essentially, there's this toy manufacturer who's evil, and also his assistant is Selena Kyle, who he pushes out a window, and then she becomes reborn or something. That also is just so strange.
Cats bite her. I don't even know.
She dies, and all these cats bite her, and then she's a zombie, I guess, now or something. Anyway, Cobblepot, Oswald Cobblepot, the Penguin, kidnaps him and essentially wants to be liked and find his parents. So they try to rebrand him and make him the mayor. Well, the other scene that you'd alluded to that is just it's just so absurd and gross is where Max Schreck has a fish and brings Cobblepot downstairs to introduce him to his campaign team. And they try to remarket him, and he bites a guy's nose off, and he's eating a fish, and it's just so weird.
Yeah. And also in that, it was either in that scene or in another scene in the same location, he's perving on just women and just being really gross, and he's I'm gonna be the mayor and I'm gonna get to grope everybody, and it's just what the fuck is this?
And then a girl's like, "Oh, you're the best role model someone could have," and then Cobblepot's like, "You're the hottest person a role model could have."
Yeah, and like it
And then,
doesn't
like,
even show
pins
her
a button.
react negatively to that. She's just like, okay. I like everybody. It's so weird. Maybe this is part of the joke, and it's supposed to be funny that like no one reacts to him the way that people would. Um, Especially given the things that he says and does. Like even when he bites the guy's nose off, like people are a little like surprised, but they kind of just stand around and they're just like, "Oh, okay." You know, it's really weird. And I mean the movie is really incongruous like this a lot of the time. It's not like I'm not going to say it's tonally a mess. I mean, it does have that kind of Burton tone the whole way through. I don't feel like these scenes are crazy out of place. Though they certainly don't need to be there. But it is like really disjointed, and so much so that certain characters just don't make sense. Like I honestly have no idea what the Catwoman is even trying to do. I have no clue. Like she has the one thing she wants to get back at the Shrek guy or whatever, and she does have that motivation, but she also just does a lot of weird shit just for the sake of it. When she becomes Catwoman. Prior to that, her motivations are, oh, I'm lonely and men talk down to me, but also I really want a man. It's really weird. But
Yeah,
this
and then,
doesn't
like,
play
she gets-
into her
she
when
gets
she's
in a
Catwoman.
scuffle. She gets in a scuffle with Batman, and like Batman throws something at her, and then for a portion of the movie, she wants to kill Batman, I guess.
Well, he like saves her, but then she's awkward to him and he walks away. That's all that happens. He doesn't even like, and she doesn't even seem like she's mad at him in the scene.
Remember when she's like hanging him? She like ties him up on the side of the roof.
You're
because
talking
they
about
were
when
in a
she's
fight.
Catwoman. Never mind. Yeah, I was talking.
Yeah.
I was talking about her original motivations. But yeah,
Yeah, she teams up with the Penguin because he like throws something at her and she's mad about it, I guess.
She also like okay, so that whole thing about her teaming up with the Penguin to stop Batman. There are so few scenes in this movie until like halfway through where it's even clear that the villains give a shit about Batman. Like he shows up and throws their plan maybe one time. I mean, does he even throw their plan? Not really. He just kind of beats up their henchmen. Nobody mentions him. But then there's this scene where Catwoman shows up to the Penguin and it's like, we're gonna take down Batman, and like he doesn't even care, but then he does care later. It's really weird. Like Batman's place in this story is just so meaningless. He doesn't really have a role here until towards the end of the film when him and Catwoman get imbued in certain things. But prior to that point, like the movie's almost trying to force a reason for them to care about Batman, and they just clearly don't, and it's really weird. Like,
yeah, honestly, Bruce Wayne in this movie is a more important character because for most of this movie, like, yes, Batman shows up and like fights some henchmen, and I will say some of those big fight scenes are pretty cool, and like the stunt team that are those acrobatic henchmen do an incredible job. That is one thing that I noticed. Like those acrobatic stunts are really cool. But then for the majority of the movie, Bruce Wayne is the more important character because he like him and Selena Kyle kiss, and then they have an awkward scene where it's like, oh, I'm gotta go be Batman, and she's like, I gotta go be Catwoman, but they can't tell each other until the very end of the movie when Batman just shows up and like saves the day, basically.
yeah, it's yeah, that's true. And by the way, the finale to this film was definitely one of the much better parts of the movie. It becomes goofy in a fun way. Like the Penguin sending out his army of penguins onto Gotham was very silly and clearly supposed to be. It was fun. Also, I think this is the point when the great set design and the great lighting and the great costuming and the great effects all really came together in the movie. And I feel like this was just a much better part of the film than like the middle stretch where we're just seeing like fetish shit. And I mean, also, in fairness, like that great set design, lighting, costuming, and yes, acrobatics, cinematography, all that stuff does carry a lot of this movie for me. Like, I think this movie looks really great. Despite it being so gross, it is a really good looking movie. And and of course the first Batman is as well. Tim Burton, especially back during this time when he didn't have as much CG to work with, really knew how to like shoot a scene and really knew how to do really creative lighting and great effects and makeup and all this stuff, and just great directing on all fronts there. And that is absolutely in this movie. I think the biggest problem is not really the sense of style, but it's more just like the really bad script. This is a lot of stupid lines. Bad character writing, bad character motivation, just confusing story elements, incongruous scenes, and stuff like that. That's where this movie fell apart for me. It being weird isn't like inherently a bad thing, but the way in which it's weird is just disgusting and terribly unappealing. And it's like, so to me, I see a lot of great elements in it, but knowing that Tim Burton didn't want to do it is not at all surprising, because it's like he's trying to be Tim Burton and do something he wants to do, but he also can't, and so both these two things are just conflicting so much, and it just turns out to be kind of a weird mess.
Yeah, I want to call out two scenes that stood out for me. One is the first time we see Bruce Wayne in this film. There's a shot where Commissioner Gordon turns on the bat signal, and then from inside Bruce Wayne's mansion, the bat signal is kind of reflecting out of the glass, and Michael Keaton stands up. That, for whatever reason, that shot, some of the cinematography is really great. That shot, and then also I feel like a really good scene is when there's a ball for whatever reason, and then bad stuff happens at it, again, for some reason. But at this ball, Bruce Wayne and Selena Kyle meet up, and they're having a dance, and they're like coming to the realization that one of them is Batman and one of them is Catwoman, and they've been sparring until this point. And that scene I really like a lot too. And then the scene that's the wackiest to me is like at the very end, Max Schreck is like, he's got a gun. They've already killed Oswald, and like all the penguins are mourning him. And then Max Schreck is like, oh yeah, I'm here too, and I have a gun. And he shoots Batman in the face, and then he shoots Catwoman, and she's like, I've got 9 lives. And he like keeps shooting her, and she's like, oh, there goes 4, 5, and 6 or whatever.
Yeah, and then she starts reciting a limerick also, which was cute.
Yeah, and then she kisses him while holding a breaker, and they blow up or something. It was very strange, and I liked it.
Yeah. Honestly, I think we should wrap it up here, right? That sounds like a good place. Yeah. Yeah, look, it's like, it's notable in the sense that, like, it's a Trojan horse fetish movie. Like, it's Batman, but then you watch it and it's a fetish movie, which I guess is interesting. I mean, it does have a lot of good elements, actually. It has a lot of good elements. I think I actually understated how many good elements are here, because there's, like, a lot. I tried to sum it all up, and hopefully I did a good job. But, I mean, again, at this time, Tim Burton really was a great director, and had a great visual style. Like, you know, like Beetlejuice, and, I mean, my favorite Pee-wee's Big Adventure, you know, just great. And that's all here, and it's even bigger and better in this movie than in those. But yeah, like, as a movie, it is a very strange clusterfuck. I would still prefer it to the, like, Zack Snyder vision, but it's like, because at least this one's weird and interesting. But overall, I don't like it. I would give it a 5. It's a weird movie to give a 5, because it feels like you should either love it or hate it. But I don't either, really. It's extremely strange, and it has a lot of bad things in it, but it has a lot of good things in it. So that's where I'm at. And would I recommend it? I mean, kind of. I mean, you'd want to watch the original Batman movie first, or the original Tim Burton one first. But this one's so weird, it feels like you kind of have to see this at some point. Like, I was always interested. I'm glad I finally have. Well, am I glad? I don't know. But it's something. It gives you something to think about, and maybe puke as well, if you want to do that for whatever reason. And that's all I have to say about it.
I would have loved to go back in time and just, like, talk to the people going into the film on Christmas Day, and by Christmas Day I mean June 19th, 1992, and see what their expectations were, and then see what they thought coming out of this film. Like, imagine all the little kids being like, yeah, I can't wait to go see my favorite superhero Batman. And then being greeted by this monstrosity. Because the thing is, like, what I don't understand about this film in the context is, like, hands down, the next two after this one are much worse, pretty much on all fronts. But they're worse in a way where it's still a superhero film. Like, this is just, I don't even know what this is, honestly. So with that, I mean, I'm especially hard on this one. I go even as low as a 3. Like, I don't understand this film at all. And I really, really like the 89, the first Burton Batman film. I don't even think I recommend this. Like, I don't even think it's weird where it's watchable to where you want to like check it out and see that. Like, I just don't even think it's a fun watch, honestly. But the reason why I'm probably not all the way at the bottom of the ranking is because I do agree, like, the set design, Danny Elfman's score, there are some really great costume work and acrobatics, and there's a lot of stuff on, like, ancillary stuff that's really great about this film. But the actual film itself, every time I watch it, I'm just flabbergasted. It is so bizarre.
All right, and with that, we should move on to what I recommended to you last time.
Yes, let's do it.
All right, so Stephen, last time I recommended to you the Christmas film Elf. It is the Christmas film wherein Will Ferrell stars as an elf, and I will leave it to you.
So in this one, Will Ferrell was an elf, and I really like that because Will Ferrell, my favorite comedy actor, he's a funny guy and he's a tall guy, and Christmas elves are supposed to be small, but he's a tall guy. And also, I like the part in the beginning of the film where everyone is supposed to be a kid, and then it's just Will Ferrell, who's also, I guess, supposed to be a kid. So
but
that's Will Ferrell's elf.
He's a big kid.
Whereas
they are small kids.
Now, in Will Ferrell's Elf, starring Will Ferrell as an elf, I do have to call out probably my favorite part of this film, which is like all of that beginning scene, like the very beginning of this movie in Santa's workshop in the North Pole. It like very clearly alludes to the Rankin and Bass films of the past, and the way that they bring that stuff to life in non-animated or non-claymation like the old Rankin and Bass were, it's just incredible. Like, it's nostalgic, it looks really cool on screen, it gives you that Christmas feeling, and it's like contrasted to Will Ferrell being an elf and Will Ferrell's elf. All of that stuff is just so much fun. And when they have like animated characters that are wishing him goodbye and everything, it's just such a like good little bite-sized piece of Christmas nostalgia that I really like. His dad, who I don't remember the name of the actor, but basically the Papa Elf, he does such a great job too in that scene. Like, all of that is just so good. And then what I will say though is, like, I don't feel like this movie ever stops being that. Like, every time I watch this film, it just gives me, it has such a great message of positivity and, the Christmas spirit and the Christmas cheer. And I still laugh at a lot of the humor. There's really great jokes in here. Some of the comedy pieces. Anytime it's like a character out of place kind of story, I find that funny, even after multiple times having watched this film. Like, the very first time he's going there and like eating gum off of things and like basically not knowing the world at all. And then actually, I think that first part, like when he's just starting to do that stuff, it's funny. But actually, what I think is more funny is when he brings Zooey Deschanel's character on a date, and like that's all the things that he knows how to do, like run through a revolving door and that sort of stuff. There's just such a warmth to all of that. And it's played for laughs, obviously, but it's never mocked or made fun of. Like, everyone thinks it's weird in universe, And in some cases, I feel like it's probably weirder than even the in-universe characters react to it to be, like the time where he's like in the girl shower while she's taking a shower. But some of that stuff, like all of that is just played so well. I will say, like, from a directing standpoint, I feel like there's some great shots here. Will Ferrell, I still find pretty funny, and especially after all these years, but in Elf especially, he does a really great job being that character. And it's just a really good modern Christmas movie.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I would really like to second your point about it being great that Will Ferrell is an elf in 2003's Christmas film Elf. I really enjoyed that. And I also really liked when, in the beginning of the film, Will Ferrell is an elf among other elves. But then later in the film, Will Ferrell is an elf among humans. And I just thought that was really, really great. And I feel like...
personally, I just have to mention, personally, I was shocked to find out that Will Ferrell playing an elf in Will Ferrell's Elf was actually a human.
Yeah, that was a big twist. And I really like the way that the film
it's not called Will Ferrell's Human Hollywood. It's called Will Ferrell's Elf.
Yeah. So big disappointment there. But, other than that, I would have liked to see more elfing from Will Ferrell as an elf. I would have liked that. I think that would have been really nice. I think that, this movie could have been a little bit longer, and we could have seen Will Ferrell as an elf do more elf things. I understand that he's a human, but, he is playing an elf. Both in the sense of the actor playing a character who believes himself to be an elf, but also in the sense that he believes himself to be an elf in universe, and therefore is playing the part of an elf in universe. So that's my stance on that. But as for the other elements, I totally agree. My favorite part of this movie by far is the beginning of the movie, because one, the set design is really great. The cinematography is really great. Like, there's a lot of great shots that trick the eye into making Will Ferrell look even bigger than he is. A lot of forced perspective. So great effects there, too. I mean, it's a great looking movie in these scenes, too. It's really colorful. Even something as simple as the opening credits I really liked, because they do call back to those stop motion Christmas movies like Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer and the other one, Santa Claus is Coming to Town. Yeah, that stuff. And they're all alluded to here. There is characters from those, like the big snowman guy from one of those. I can't remember which one. And isn't there a reference to to one of the characters in Rudolph? I don't remember. But anyway, it's really nice. There's also a sequence after this when Will Ferrell as an elf and Will Ferrell's elf is traveling to New York, and he's going through these fantasy Christmas areas, and there's a bit where he gets on a little sheet of ice over the water and then uses it to sail across the ocean, and by the time he's on the other side, it's almost completely melted. And it's silly stuff like that. It's just really cute and really fun, and there is integration of stop motion characters, and all that stuff is just super, super good. So I really like that. But as for the fish out of water comedy stuff, I mean, that's not my favorite thing. It's okay. It's chuckle-worthy stuff where it's that's funny. People don't do that. But it kind of loses its comedic value over the course of an entire movie. When, I mean, really, all of the jokes in this film are that to some degree. Which isn't to say it never gets creative. I mean, there's the whole scene where he fights with the mall Santa and stuff, which is pretty fun. But And I also I agree, I really like how they brought back some of the first stuff he learned to do when he got to New York, when he actually takes Zooey Deschanel on a date. That was cute, but then there's stuff of him putting candy in spaghetti, and it's haha, you don't do that. Syrup and spaghetti? You don't do that. Which I found a little bit obnoxious. And a lot of the gags here are just kind of obvious stuff. What would Will Ferrell as an elf and Will Ferrell's elf do? Well, he would, eat a lot of candy. He would act like a child, and he does all that stuff, and it's just kind of obvious. But I think the movie picks up quite a bit towards the end, when it turns back into a big Christmas movie where like they have to help Santa. And I really appreciate this movie spreading the message that that Santa is real, because Santa is real. And I just really appreciated that. I thought that was really nice because I'm a Santa believer. And I would hope that everybody watching is as well. That is the official Get Recc'd stance, just to make it clear. So I appreciated all that, and that was all fun. The one scene that I wanted to mention, though, that I did not quite like was the scene with Peter Dinklage, where Peter Dinklage is an author. He's like a children's author. And the entire crux of the joke is that he is a little person, which I feel like I have seen Peter Dinklage in a lot of roles in the 2000s, comedy roles, where this was the joke, and I just feel bad for him. It sucks, and it's not really that funny. It's much funnier that Will Ferrell is a tall person who is an elf. I think they should have stuck to that more, but that's my take.
Yeah, and just to talk a little bit about the plot, some of the best parts of this movie, other than Will Ferrell's elf being an elf, of course, is there's just such a great message of family, all of those classic Christmas themes. Like, I really enjoy the relationship that Will Ferrell ends up having with his, I guess, step brother. Buddy and the stepbrother character, start at odds, but create this really special bond that then kind of spreads out through the whole movie between him and other characters who are either down on their luck or, a little, like a little unenthusiastic or don't believe in Christmas, as it spreads out to his love interest, as it spreads out to his quote unquote boss, his mom or stepmom, and then his dad, of course, at the end of this, as it all ties together. And then, as you mentioned, just the end of this movie is so great. Like that final scene where they're having to help Santa Claus, who is obviously real, Will Ferrell as an elf helping Santa Claus. It's like, what more could you want on Christmas Day?
I would personally want Will Ferrell as an elf in my home. So I might ask for that, but otherwise, yes, true.
I like the cast here too. Like a lot of random comedians kind of show up. Like Andy Richter shows up at one point. I think Amy Sedaris is in this as like a secretary. It's just a funny cast. Jon Favreau shows up as a doctor, who, by the way, I feel like did a great job here and has gone on to direct some incredible things. Like from this point on, it's like insane to think about how this kind of like not necessarily kickstarted his directing career, but did not kickstart his directing career, and he's gone on to become a gigantic powerhouse in the industry.
Yeah, and I mean he's a very, very competent comedy director, and he's more than that too, because like when you see the beginning portion of this film, like it's just a really well directed bit, and well shot, and you can definitely see that talent there. And I mean, I don't know if he got the good performance out of Will Ferrell as an elf in Will Ferrell's Elf, or if Will Ferrell is just that good of a comedy actor, or some combination of the two. But I do think that Will Ferrell does a really good job in as an elf in Will Ferrell's Elf.
Well, I mean, he was made for the role. I mean, if you take the letters in his last name, you can spell elf. So it's like right there.
That's true. Yeah. And he's tall. So
in fact, honestly, most of the time, I don't know if this is a little backstage magic, but actually what people don't know is casting directors often look at everybody's name and see if they can rearrange the letters to make the title of the movie. And if so, then they're a lock.
Yeah, and then it's just gold from then on out. I mean,
yeah.
I'm honestly, I'm not a big Will Ferrell fan. I can't think of any role I've seen him in where like he just cracked me up or something. But he's funny, and he's good in this role too. Like he plays it up a lot, but it makes sense for him to do that. Like his entire character is basically, it's similar to like a Pee Wee Herman thing where it's kind of like man-child, like it's funny because he's like a grown man, but he's like acting like a child. But it is pretty funny. And Will Ferrell just does a really good job at it, but it's also not like so over the top that he's annoying. I actually don't think that Will Ferrell's elf in Will Ferrell's Elf is ever annoying, which is pretty surprising because it seems like it's a pretty easy thing to happen. But he's actually just really heartwarming and really charming, and like so much so to the point where if other characters don't like him, you feel bad for him. You're like, oh, you should like him. He's sweet. And I like that. So props to Will Ferrell playing an elf in Will Ferrell's Elf for his performance as an elf.
Well, I think with that, I'm not sure if I have anything else to say. We can wrap it up.
Sure, yeah, go ahead.
So to me, this has easily become one of the classics. I just think it's such a great live action Christmas movie. It really gets to the themes of what Christmas is and can be. It's very heartwarming, and it has some mature themes, but not so much that you couldn't watch this with the whole family easily and everyone will get a kick out of it. And I just have to say, honestly, props to Will Ferrell playing an elf in Will Ferrell's Elf, because no one else could have done it. I mean, it's called Will Ferrell's Elf, and if he wasn't the elf in Will Ferrell's Elf, then who would be, honestly? So thank you, Will Ferrell, for giving us this treat. And with that, I give Will Ferrell's Elf an 8, and I recommend it.
Yeah, I too quite like Will Ferrell's Elf, which stars Will Ferrell as an elf. I think it's a nice movie. I'm not big on Christmas movies generally. But, if you're looking for like a nice heartwarming thing that's going to make you feel good on Christmas, you could do a lot worse. And there is a surprising amount of attention to detail in the movie for what it is, especially towards the beginning of the film. I like it. It's sweet, but it's not much more than that for me. And I mean, it's not the funniest movie ever either. Not that it would be. But, it is pretty decent, and it has become a Christmas classic. You have to watch Will Ferrell's Elf, where Will Ferrell stars as an elf.
It is mandated
during the holiday. Yeah, and if it hasn't been already, allow us to mandate it, that you watch this every December. But yeah, I would give it like a 6. As far as Christmas movies go, yes, I probably would recommend it. It's nice and cute, and Will Ferrell's an elf in it, so props. And I think with that, we should move on to our recommendations for next time.
Let's do it.
All right, so as we have been known to do, on New Year's, we are doing New Year, New Me, which means that we have a What Happened rec. And What Happened is an occasional theme we do where we take a look at a franchise or a certain artist, director, whatever, and take a look at how it went from being good to bad or bad to good, depending on whatever the wrecker feels. And with that, Stephen, I will allow you to make your rec.
Well, we'll talk about where mine falls on the spectrum, but as we just discussed today, Will Ferrell was an elf. But in this movie, this series, Will Ferrell is instead an anchorman, which is crazy because he's already an elf, so how could he also be an anchorman? But with that, I will recommend to you Anchorman, The Legend of Ron Burgundy, and Anchorman 2, The Legend Continues.
And is this good to bad or bad to good?
We will find out.
Oh, we're not. Damn, this is the first time we're sneaking in a surprise.
I will say good to bad, but it has been a long time since I've watched either of these films, so we will see if that holds true.
Okay, cool. Well, if it doesn't, that's going to be embarrassing. Anyway, I have a recommendation.
I'm going to have to quit the podcast.
Yeah, oh no. So I am recommending a band that we have actually talked about once before which is really nice that we have, because I think that the album we discussed was a nice mid-period here, so I don't have to recommend 3 albums, which I would have done otherwise. And that band is Green Day, who I believe went from being, in these 2 albums, pretty much from the furthest end of the spectrum good to the furthest end of the spectrum bad. The first album I'm recommending is 1994's Dookie. This was Green Day's major label debut, breakthrough album, one of the best-selling records ever, and, you know, produced every 90s Green Day radio hit you can think of, except for the ones that don't come from Dookie. And then after that, I am recommending their 2020 album, Father of All, ... also known as Father of All Motherfuckers. And this album is the worst thing ever, so it's great. And that is what we are doing next time. We will find out what happened in both cases next time. I promise you the answers will be revealed.
And they will shock you.
And thank you, everybody, for showing up as always, whether you are listening on CastBox, whether you are listening live on YouTube, or after the live stream on YouTube, wherever you are. If you are on YouTube, of course, we are on CastBox. That link will be in the description, not at the moment, but it will be when this goes up. And if you are on CastBox, you can find us on YouTube at Casting404. And you can actually catch these live as we do them if you would like to show up. We appreciate your patronage. Thank you for watching, and I hope that your holidays were great. Your Toyota-thon, your other things, Honda days, and the Lexus season of giving.
Yeah, we realized that it probably looked different for a lot of people because of the year that we are in. So we hope that it was still happy, and we appreciate each and every one of you. We will see you in the new year, hopefully.
Yeah, and I guess that's pretty much it, right?
Yep.
Okay, well, those were our thoughts. Those were our recommendations. Get wrecked.